Welcome, everyone, to Poetry Africa. This online session is titled Afrofuturism in Verse, Imagining Futures Through African Poetry. And Poetry Africa as a festival has been made possible by these sponsors: UKZN, CCA, Center for Creative Arts, National Lottery Commission, and UKZN Sports, Arts and Culture, French Institute, and Total Energies. And we are very grateful to these sponsors. So what I'm going to do is read the bios of the poets that are going to join me for this session titled Afrofuturism in Verse, Imagining Futures and Through Africa, through African Poetry. So the first poet is Nastio Mosquito from Angola. Nastio Mosquito lives and works in Kent. He has realized projects with institutions including MoMA, New York, Van Abbe Museum, Eindhoven, Portugal, Frankfurt, Zuid-Mocha, Cape Town, Fondesia, Brother, Milan, Louisiana Museum, Halper, Taton, Modern London. Amongst the many group exhibitions, he has participated in Documenta in 2017 and San Paulo Biennale in 2010, and on the 9th one Guangzhou Biennale 2012. In 2014, he was the recipient of the Future Generation Art Prize, Pinchot Art Center, QView, and in 2015, he received the Cedric Wilman Award in Belgium. He was also nominated for the Artes Mood Prize, Cardiff, in 2016. Welcome, Nastio. And the other poet is Xabiso Vili, the World Poetry Slam champion, Mandela Washington Fellow, Maiden Garden Top 200 Young South African. Xabiso is a multi-award-winning performer, writer, new media artist, producer, and social activist. He's the founder of Sizintomi Creations, a creative incubator company that focuses on the intersections of storytelling, innovative mediums, media, and healing. He believes that art offers humanity a path towards integration, joy, and healing, works towards creating alternative spaces for art to be shared in innovative ways. He's currently researching and creating a methodology of how writing can be used as a tool for therapy. And then we have Thuthukani Ndlovu, aka TK, who is a poet, a blogger, and immersed media artist based in Bloemfontein, South Africa. His work focuses on social activism, has performed in several African countries. He has a passion for driving innovation and creativity through artistic expression and technology and capacity and development. He is the knowledge manager for African Technopreneurs, the creative director of the Radioactive blog and the Radioactive Poetry Cafe. TK is an alumna of the Festival Academics Atelier for Young Festival Managers, received the Innovation in Poetry Award from Word and Sound in 2019. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Okay, I'm just going to start with trying to unpack and tease out this topic for everyone, right? And meaning. What is Afrofuturism in verse mean for you and your poetry? And I will start with you, Xabiso.
All right. I mean, it's a loaded question. It's a big question.
Did we lose Xabiso? Yes, we did. He's going to come back. So over to you, Mosquito, if you just care to answer the question for us.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a combination of many things, right? Like from what one aspires to achieve or perceive or propose to some extent, like premises that don't have reason and logic necessarily as the departure points, right? Is the place where imagination is intrinsically at the service of our present, when we don't concern ourselves necessarily with the logic of one or two steps, but one kind of projects oneself into the future with your imagination and your capacities well rooted in a sense of the present. I don't know. I confessed, I tried to another term very recently. I tried to sell it to a few friends, which was like this contrast and relationship between Afro futurism and what I seem to sense now to be some kind of Afro presentism, but we can get there at some point. But my definition, I think, how I recognize myself in that, it's our imagination at the service of the realities that we want to see come forth. At least that's how it inhabits my universe.
Thank you very much for that description. And so the term that you said Afrofuturism and Afro
Presentism.
Presentism. We're going to get back to that. And thank you for that offering. And imagination is the key, right? I hear the word and serving to the future. Xabiso, so if you can just take it, unmute yourself, you back, and you can just answer the question for our audiences.
Wonderful. Yeah, technology will betray you just when you need it. So when I look at Afrofuturism, I kind of look at it underneath the umbrella of speculative fiction, right? So I'm really interested in speculative fiction and Black speculative fiction, in how we begin to reimagine our past, our present, and our future. So, I get really interested in genres of magical realism, really interested in genres of Afrofuturism, and how we can kind of begin to use these different genres of speculation to kind of craft and reimagine the past, so that we can like reimagine and craft our present and our future. So I mean, I mentioned Afrofuturism, magical realism, like a lot of Black sci-fi can also fit in here. There's a lot of like speculative fiction genres that one can really utilize to reimagine the world and time.
Okay. Beautiful. So the notion of collapsing time in the now and imagining the possibilities is at play in this definition. And a Mosquito said something beautiful and said it kind of encompasses many factors and many genres, in which you've just excavated even more, Xabiso. Thuthukani, you can take it for the audience. Are we winning with Thuthukani?
Yeah, I think they've said quite interesting, I think, answers to the question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm not too sure if you guys can still hear me.
We can still hear you. You're a bit stagnant, so the image is a bit stagnant, but or stagnated. That's the word that I'm trying to use.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hopefully, the network will be a bit better. Yeah, but what I was gonna say is, from my side, in terms of Afrofuturism in verse, yeah, most of my work personally, as previously stated in the email communications, is more focused on the tools. Saying, look, I will create and express myself in any way possible. Occasionally, yes, there are poems where, I try to reimagine or try to think of a specific future to say, okay, this is perhaps let's say, taboo within a specific African culture? And what does that look like in the future in a world where it no longer becomes taboo, for example? And how can we then utilize current technological tools to not just preserve history, but to even express specific ideas, and not only limit ourselves to what we have, but to also just push the boundaries, to push the envelope and say, look, how do you have this poem becoming something else with different layers that game or through a virtual reality headset, because those are the tools that can help us reimagine or look at certain cultural things from a different lens. So yeah, that's how I view Afrofuturism in verse.
So thank you very much. So you stress the tool of technology, right? And the art of sensing and hearing using technology. And somehow there's an engagement that goes beyond, right? And the fact that we here are having an online discussion that goes beyond what or enhances more what the oral storytelling would be, or what then happens to the audience, right? How do they receive the works? I wonder, right? If technology is that tool, and so I'm gonna go with you guys with these definitions and this part that we're creating here. And so I'm going to ask process for each person. And so, and not be bound to the definitions or the ports, right? So then we kind of expand and tease it out for our audience. So how then do you encounter poetry in the process of what your descriptions have been of Afrofuturism in verse? So Mosquito will go for you.
How do I encounter poetry? I don't know. There's something extremely compelling, right? Like again, if I bring not necessarily a sense of definition of Afrofuturism, but my understanding of what are the tools that it offers me, it's about considering departure points and also considering points of arrival. Nah? And for me, how that touches me, it's the attempt. It's the again. If you speak about process, it's a sense of intention. Any declared intention that requires process, and it depending on its dimension, would also require the involvement of other humans. Any declaration of ambition, I think there's got to be a relationship with a poetic sense, an aspiration sense, something, an exaggeration of capacity, possibility of conflict, and all of those things. So the poetry of the attempt, the poetry of the declared attempt, it's always there for me. It's always present when I'm aspiring to occupy a space I don't yet occupy, when I'm aspiring to provide a quality, be it to a perspective or just to an experience, whatever is aspiring to create a new reality or to create a new way of looking at a common reality. I don't know how to approach those things without an energetic field that is ultimately poetic. Like it might sound arrogant. I don't know what you guys would think, but if there's one thing that I can express with a certain confidence, is that I am a poet. I happen to also write poetry, but that's not what makes me a poet. You know what I mean? It's almost like we have people that teach, but then we have teachers, nah? And they may or may not teach, and people that teach may or may not be teachers. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, so the relationship I have with process and what I connect my practice to these concepts or these definitions or these tools, as I like to put that, are at the service of whatever it is that we want to inhabit, whatever it is that we want to experience, share, and all of those things. It's definitely this sense of movement and this sense of inner motion, the departure point and where I want to arrive. So that's the relationship I have with it.
Thank you for that. And so, adding to what you're saying, I can see, I can sense in the poeticness of, or my response is, I get this notion that time and space starts to collapse, right? As you move in motion, and you occupy these poetic spaces, or these poetic imaginations. And I love what you said about the teacher, that it comes in different forms. Thank you so much. Xabiso. So if you can just...
let me just say, sorry to not necessarily to sorry.
It's okay, you can go on. Okay.
No, yeah, because I just wanted to say, because it's important, like it's not necessarily time and space collapsing, but it's it almost like one not being bound by time and space, right? One being 100% committed to what it is that one ambitions to experience, develop, show, explore, whatever that may be. Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I thought it was just important.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can have your nuances, brother. It's okay. That's what we're here for. And we'll move in motion through that. And not be bound by space and time. As you said, Xabiso.
I like this idea that Mosquito brings up of like a new way of looking and a new way of being, right? Because I think that's what quite often this poetry process can offer. I think even the term Afrofuturism itself can be a little bit like difficult and problematic, because it's again taken from a lens of looking into Africa and then giving like what has already existed in Africa a term to make sense for the present, for the now, for the other that isn't African, right? Whereas a lot of what is spoken about in this genre of Afrofuturism has existed in African history, like across time, right? And so if we begin to look at storytelling, if we begin to look at poetry and music, you can see a lot of these speculative genres already existing, like within Intsomi and folk tales, within the music that we share, within the dancing that we do around the fire. There's already like a magical element that exists in the art that we create, right? And then fast forward like a few hundred years, and we get to this moment where now we have all of this technology that we can begin to engage with. And what's quite funny, if you follow, for me, is that like I've followed the process of poetry, and it has led me to a point of engaging with technology to then be able to share the magic and the spirituality that exists within it, right? I always kind of see the technology I use, be it virtual reality, augmented reality, projection mapping, almost being this like a spiritual layer that one can play with, where you can invite an audience into like an ancestral realm to create a world and to share these words there, right? And so I think the technology is really exciting, but it's just part and parcel of a poetic process that demands of itself to be shared in like its true mystic, magical, spiritual form, right? And for me, it's really, I think the process is always just kind of being true to what the poem asks for, be it wanting to be performed on stage, be it wanting to be recorded via video, be it wanting to be in a book, or be it wanting to be in a 360 like virtual reality headset. If that's what the poem is asking, then that is the process that I give myself over to allow the poem to be born.
Oh, thank you, Xabiso. And so you're going to go to technology. So we're doing very well here. So, and so I want to just engage the fact that Ben Okri says that storytelling is the oldest form of technology. because it transmits images, right? And moves, as Mosquito said, I said collapses time and space, but it moves time beyond time and space, right? The concept of time as in now, because once you engage that moment and you are embodied and in that moment, something shifts. And to Thuthukani, I want you to then engage what is the process of technology, and in how your poetry projects encounter technology, right? Or the other way around. I don't know if it's the poetry
All right, cool.
encountering the technology.
Yeah, in terms of the process. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very very good question. And I'll explain why. So on my side, in terms of the process, with some of the workshops that I've done, I'm very intentional in saying, when I work with poets, digital artists, and put them in the same space, I'm very intentional in getting them to both learn simultaneously about the different technological tools that are there. To then say, okay, so that they also understand, okay, these are the limitations, but these are the areas with the technological tools. So when you mean some of the previous projects that I've done with the workshops, for example, with Giving Poetry Wings, would get poets, digital artists in the same room and say, okay, this is what augmented reality is. This is one of many tools, and this is one of the applications you can use to kind of create work. There are instances where a poet can then, like for example myself, I could write a poem, and that poem can inspire an artwork, and that artwork can then be embedded with augmented reality to enable then the audience to not just see an artwork or to read the poem, but actually experience the poem while scanning the artwork with the augmented reality app, for example. But like you said, it could happen the other way around, where someone might have an idea and say, okay, this would be a nice video or visual experience. How do I then work with a visual artist and a poet? So yeah, it can work either way. I think, as Xabiso said, sometimes it's you gotta also maybe listen to the poem, because sometimes there's certain poems that where I saw you putting your finger. I don't know if you're stopping me.
No. Sorry, I just got excited. I must put my fingers here because I've got the next question for Mosquito. Go on.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Were you done?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. No, I was just wrapping up, just saying that it can work, both ways. There's no specific one formula. It's just always good for the creative, or in this case, the poet, to learn. As Xabiso has mentioned, I think Xabiso is one of the best examples of what happens when a writer can learn about the different technological tools, not just augmented reality, because there are more, and create work, because then it also expands when you know that you are writing with the possibility of being able to achieve this through virtual reality, through projection mapping, or augmented reality. So yeah, that's what I'll share.
Virtual reality, projection. You must give us these terms. Augmented reality, right? Yo, you guys have bars. Mosquito, I mean, you do so beautifully. To TK, you do a beautiful linkway to Mosquito's, I would say, because you sent me a link of some of your work, right? And just having read your bio, where you that imagery or visual, there's a visual what visual expert in your poetry, right? And so can you, and I'm not capturing it right, can you somehow speak to that for me? Am I making sense? How the visual meets your poetry, and poetry is seen in the visual, right? In your exhibition, in the works that you've done, and you can offer us even examples.
Yeah, I think the best way to talk about that is I am a little bit obsessed with efficiency, So everything starts from a poem. And then it becomes about what's the most efficient way that we can communicate this energetic field. Because sometimes the poem will transform itself into an image. Sometimes it will become a song. Sometimes it will become a video. So the process is follow the poem, follow the narrative, follow the energetic field that requires to communicate and to compel another human being. So that is the process, and once one initiates that, it's about layers. Is adding the visual layer going to create something that the poem couldn't do itself? Because it's not trying to substitute the reader, let's say, imagination, right? So if we have visuals connected to whatever writing, poem, or text that we have, it must really, to use a term that my brothers and sisters, like you probably know more, like augment, really, it has got to offer something that the poem in itself cannot do, because it cannot be a crutch, right? The visuals, there's got to be a vision. So it's always a process of understanding. If we have layers to put on top, they will add value to what the goal of that, piece of work is. So this is sort of my process. It has to add a value to it. On another way, it also should offer me a chance in the relationship with the viewer, with the audience, with the public, with the reader, whatever it is got to put me in a situation in which whoever encounters the work has to make their own decisions. So a lot of the times, the visuals are here to create a layer in which it doesn't allow, at least that's what I am committed to every time I do a work, whether I'm going for visuals, whether I'm going for sound, where I'm going for music, where I'm going for a physical environment. It can't make you a passive observer, right? In which you are judging what you see. So I am always committed to transform everything that I produce. It must have enough blood in it that I attempt, I commit to providing some kind of visceral relationship with what it is that you are, relating to. For example, I have this question that I'm using, for example, in this exhibition, and you see it in two ways. You see it in written form, just a text, and then you see it as an audio form inside a video. And it's because, like, the question itself, it doesn't require much but to be presented. And the question is, who told you? Who the fuck told you? And and when I started to think about that, and all the layers with which that comes to, I think it's a very confrontational question, and what it requires, for example, it is just a sense of clarity. Because it becomes important, if you're going to answer that question, if you're going to consider it even before you answer it, you've got to understand that I'm asking that from a point of view that I'm rooted in a place of, how can I say, like it's even though the question is confronting, it intends to offer something. It's here to invite consideration to how you find yourself in a particular kind of present, or in a particular kind of belief system, or in a particular kind of emotional field, whatever that is. So my relationship with creating visuals, creating sonics, again, can we do this in the most efficient way? Can my intention be embedded in what it is that you witness and how you witness? So with those things, yo, guys, come on. Like, again, I don't know if I get it right. You know what I mean? But this is where the yeah, I have no choice but to do it like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add, I don't think that when I hear you describe, and I haven't seen the work, that it is about getting it right or wrong. I can sense that it's a creative experience that offers a lot of excavation and questioning, right? And I wanna pick up on it. I wanna pick up, and then we're gonna read our poems afterwards, if everyone, because this is just beautiful and rich as a discussion, and it really is unpacking the topic for the audience or for me. So what you offered in your description, Mosquito, and this is audience, right? Considering the audience, right? And what you in your offering, you then start to tie in with Xabiso's statement that storytelling has been here, you know, and these senses of have been in Africa, right? And the ways and the forms. And so we're gonna talk into the one form that Xabiso is talking about, which is Intomi. It's an oral storytelling form spoken or practiced by Xhosa people, Nguni people and with most of these, and my obsession, right? Because when you talk about Africa, you can't talk about oral storytelling form. That's me, right? So I've got my own obsessions also. And what I'm interested in is how it invites the audience and how it takes it's a call and response, and there's a tradition. There is kwasuka sukela, people then respond. Also, there is that the story is about to start. It's not once upon a time kwasuka sukela. The story we are about to start, so you respond stored, and then it collapses that moment of reality for the audience and the performer, that then now we're engaging the story moment, right? And then it goes into, I mean, the Shona people have a beautiful, and I don't have the Shona words right now, but and the form is Seronguno or Soronguna. I'm getting around, I'm butchering my Shona right now. I need to have my PowerPoint presentation. So the storyteller, and it's a form, oral storytelling, and the storyteller or the story. But what the storyteller does, first it's gender, the storyteller must be a woman. But what the storyteller does then, when the story is done, the storyteller derolls. And so the storyteller dies. And so if someone in Shona could say this in Shona for me. And so that means then the story is done. We are back to another realm of time, right? And so I've got a mouthful about this because you spoke about audience, and I want to go into both of you, TK and Xabiso. So I'm going Xabiso, whatever, because I'm getting excited. Xabiso, and I'll start with you, TK. So what is your consideration for the audience in the work that you do, right? And in the processes that you take them through with the tools that you have. So TK, please take it, and then we go into reading our poems.
All right. Okay. So yeah, that's a lot of good questions. Yeah, I think in terms of the audience, I think that's a very good factor to consider, especially when creating work. I think sometimes there is that question of, do you write for the audience or do you write for yourself? But I think when one is now putting their work out there, they should, factor in how the audience will consume their work. More importantly than how they're interpreted, because interpretations will be different. So I think on my side, I'll give an example of this project I did recently with these two poets from Lesotho. The project is called Basotho 200 Augmented Reflections. And I was asking myself, my grandmother's from Lesotho, and I was like, it'd be nice to do something in celebration of Lesotho, as they celebrate the 200 years of their existence. And I was thinking, okay, I could write a poem in English, or I could get poets from Lesotho to write a poem in English, because you want everyone to be able to access this information about Lesotho turning 200 and about the mountains, the Thaba Bosiru, etc. However, I said, look, the primary target audience would be people who want to take away or feel a sense of pride. So I was like, no, I must use poets who will recite in Sesotho, And I was like, okay, but then how do I then, still in a way include an audience that may not interpret it? Because yes, you can feel the poem, but it's such rich history that, you don't want to leave out any opportunity. And for the first time, I then decided to include, for example, subtitles. So in simple terms, to shorten my answer, basically now I created the artwork. So I created an artwork of Thaba Bosiru, for example. And there's a poet, the two great poets, I will mention them at the end. I got a poet from Lesotho, very talented, Thabo, and he wrote a poem about this mountain in celebration of Lesotho turning 200 years. And so when you scan the artwork, you're able to listen to him reciting the poem while you see a video of the actual subtitles in English of the poem. So it gives the audience, an opportunity to say, oh, he's talking about this mountain and, all the different attributes of why it's the most important mountain, or they consider it the most important mountain in Lesotho, while watching just a brief animation. So that's an example of how I had to consider the audience in ensuring that, yes, Basotho will be proud because of the language, which is still rich. But for the average person who may not interpret it, at least they get a sense of, oh, okay, this is, quite clearly a significant piece of history. So, yeah.
And thank you for that that moment. I'll go to one of our audience members. So I'll read all of them right now. Xabiso saying greeting poets. So people are here with you. Angela says greetings. Then Xabiso greets Angela, and then Angela greets Xabiso. Xabiso, why am I going? I'm just getting too passionate and getting your name wrong. And then greets Xabiso, because we're on technology and we're augmented and all the nice things. And then Nomakezi adds to your conversation and says, call and response, ! My current love affair, reciprocal attentiveness when making the world together. Lovely conversation, thank you. And then Tabisang says, greetings again, TK. People know your names. Ish, there's audiences here that know you guys. Such a rich conversation. So I'll give it a bit. I'll push a bit, and then we're gonna read our poems. And then I wanna go into this notion and say it to Lesotho, because this is the platform on which we in Africa. Lesotho is celebrating the 200 years. Happy 200 years. Give it a moment, right? Happy 200 years. Happy 200 years, right? And so you're the second speaker, TK, in my sessions that have also just reiterated Lesotho's celebrations. And so what you do so beautifully there, when you consider history, you start to use technology to archive. And so archive in a way that transcends just the written word. When I hear you speak and about this project, that starts to give landscape to what Lesotho is. You can't speak about Lesotho without speaking about the mountains, because there are mountains everywhere, right? And so the fact that you include technology, but you consider wide audiences, right? And I want to engage one of the things that people with a disability of hearing have taught me, and it goes to what Mosquito is saying, that then you transcend just listening and trying to listen, that you are actually listening with your body vibrations. And so I'm always wondering, with us, who people who are able-bodied, what are we missing out? That we can't engage on that, and which somehow to a certain extent starts to bring the notion of what does it mean to have that visceral experience in the artwork. And I'm obsessed now with respectfully so, and understanding that my politics of disability needs to be stretched, that I'm being called to really listen beyond just this. Are we listening with your heart? Are you listening with your body? That embodied experience. And so what would it be for your work to even consider an audience that has various disabilities? And then we start to have conversations. I'm just thinking out loud. And what you started to excavate for me, I'm not asking that question now. We need Xabiso audience, considering audience, and then we'll go into poetry. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to tap into, right? Because I mean, even just to slightly touch on the conversation of inclusivity, and how do we like create work and use technology in a way that invites people in, right? Be you in a wheelchair, be you deaf or hard of hearing, be you sight impaired. And so like, how do we now start to not necessarily, our stories don't always need to be about it's the idea of no stories about us without us, but we definitely need to be thinking about how we can expand and include our audience more, right? Which then becomes like this segue and this conversation around how do we also include our audience, and this call and response that Nomakweza is talking about in the work that we do. And it's interesting that you bring about the question of Tostos and Gwasuga Sugela, because like I have got two projects titled exactly that, where I was like starting to imagine like this digital space as like the new fire that we sit around, where we gather and we share story, right? So then how do we invite people into this new space to listen to story? And so Tostos and Gwasuga Sugala, two different projects, utilize projection mapping, which they like, you take poems and you project animation onto buildings or into space, and you map those accordingly. And I worked with, like some incredible artists, including Belita Andre, Nomashenge Dlamini, Mutise Sehote, like just in the poetry, to excavate and research different African origin stories, to then start to create and write poems of our own origin stories, and then start to create animation of these origin stories. And I mean, that's just one way of like beginning to engage and putting poetry in public spaces for people to engage with. I've created kind of, how do you call, treasure hunts, right? Where where I've worked with poets to create augmented poems where people can like where illustrations exist across the city, and if you find the illustration, you can view it through your phone, and then poets start like performing, and so you can go through the city searching for these poems like in virtual reality, like in headsets. I get really excited by the capacity to like choose your own adventure, right, and to make your own decision, which Mosquito was mentioning earlier, which like, you know, you give the audience the capacity to make decision. I started to think of it as like this idea of like it also becomes its own activism, and like so in like some of the work that I've done, like an audience can choose like which scene and which poem they go on to next, and depending on the choices you've made, you get different endings, and you can put that in VR, you can put that in books. And so even right now, I'm currently in conversation with somebody in a wheelchair about creating a virtual reality film of just like about their life and their dating life. And so I get really excited by this technology, about like the kind of doors it can open for accessibility, for communication, for call and response, for collaboration. I love the term that the Marquez was stating about building the world together, right? Because I think that's what, if we go back to like now this idea of this Afrofuturism in verse, like I think that's what we're doing when we're talking about this Afrofuturism and we're talking about speculative fiction, is that we're crafting a world together. Like all the stories that we tell are all these like different spells that we can like all like kind of start to put together that make up the fabric of reality, right? And so we can begin to all like do our spells in like all the different pockets of the world where we exist and come together to put them together to then kind of all of a sudden look around and be like, oh guys, look, this is the world that we made, right? This is the world that we intentionally like walked into. And so I think that for me becomes really, really, really exciting and becomes the, you know, that thing.
Mongo. So it's the juice, it's the bone marrow,
Yeah,
right?
I feel like I want to submit something, guys. Sorry.
I'm here, but
Yeah.
can I go
No,
to
because
the audience?
I want to
Can I just say what the audience
Oh,
is
okay.
saying, and then
Please,
I'll get back to
please,
you? Okay.
please.
So no, it's okay. We it's exciting. I'm like bubbling because we still need to have time for our poems. So Noma Kwezi says, "Oh yes, to rethinking digital space as the new fire." And Noma Kwezi again says, recognizing the aliveness of creations. And then I'll take it to you, Mosquito, because and writers, you witches. Someone says. Oh, that's
Wow.
Lulega. We're having so much fun. Oh, you witches. Witchcraft. Beautiful. And I've been saying working together as a collective, as creatives. So over to you. We've got like 10 minutes. Over to you, Mosquito. If you wrap it up, I'll keep quiet.
Okay, I'll try to be super quick, and then I'll shut up and let the poems go. It's just because like I still feel maybe this is a little bit of a resistance of the artist in me to create space, right? Everything we do, I think that you guys, my colleagues, will attest that everything we do it for an audience, but I don't think the audience is not our boss. Nah? So because a lot of the times when we are talking about inclusivity, I think we have to think about inclusivity as we think about community, in the sense like what I do is not for everybody. So when we're talking about inclusion and we're talking about formats and we're talking about who gets to have access to something, I come from Angola, right? Our more than 30 years of civil war have given a lot of people with motor disabilities, right? Or in situations. So I do have certain ideas because of my context that I want to provide something for that community, that to have access. But I've got to say, I have some ideas that the idea happens on top of a tower. They ain't gonna go. But you know what I mean? Like in a sense, when we talk about inclusion, I think we have to also talk about plurality and community. That's why we are all needed, so that the offer or what is being developed touches everybody, you know? Because I'm going to do something. I know my language is not for everybody. I know that my energy is not for everybody. Some people, this is a bit too much. And so I get a sister or I got a brother. Oh no, this is for you. Then I cannot be efficient in this context or in this community. I have to let me serve you, right? And then I serve you, you serve me, we serve the others in favor of providing a potential audience with the plurality of points of view, but also entrances. All I say this because I see a lot of young people are very, very worried about thinking about everything, you know, like one perspective has to consider everything. And I think it is important, again, if we honor our ideas, we are going to be honest. Our ideas have limited, you know, like energetic fields. They you know what I mean? So like one thing is to obey the ideas, and some ideas may have a space of more inclusion. Some ideas are more reduced, either because of their language, their intensity, the physicality that you require to experience them. And I just want to express that that is okay. Like inclusion, I think, should come from the plurality of who gets to offer narratives into the community, right? And how we celebrate and how we create value on that. Like what I do is not for everybody. A lot of the things that I do are not considering, you know, all kinds of things, you know, like, and I cannot be obsessed with that. The only thing I've got to guarantee, am I available to listen, right? Am I available to share space? Am I available to serve another? Nah? And with that dynamic, I think we can be efficient. Sorry, I know that was not short.
It was not short, but it's okay. You added more complexity to the discussion, and we love that. And so Tony Weber says, Grand Rich, I love the expansiveness in your thinking on this topic, inclusive of everyone, time, space, mods. It's magical. Very true, Angela says. So then we go into the poetry, and we've got 5 minutes each, because we needed to talk about this topic and it was so important, and the ancestors and the realms and spaces and the time were calling us to talk about it and have a conversation. And I wanna actually say thank you so much. Chris Fallen says, Mosquito, well said. Thank you so much for adding to that point. Okay, poems. Xabiso, and then TK, and then Mosquito.
Wonderful, thank you. Hey, they're crying here. Not 5 minutes each. We've got
Sorry,
like a
I'm
minute.
sorry. The conversation moved us.
All right, I'm gonna do like 3 excerpts from 3 different projects and see if I can put them together into one poem over here. So I won't speak too much about what or where. I'll just jump into it. In the beginning, Amata plucked a mouth from the unbreaking silence, fashioned it into the shape of yos and ohms, filled it with song, sound spilled down the universe's gullet, which was not yet a throat, creation not yet a thought, vibration shimmered a celestial body dancing into existence, drum skin expanding, stretched over hollow space. The cosmos played the first rhythm, a rippling heartbeat birthing suns, naked and thrust into chaos, moons clutching onto the afterbirth of stars, broken water and placenta. What a mess was made for the sake of breath, lungs rooted in the sky, where Kamata planted the first of our kind. In the beginning, God was naked, like all children born into chaos. Don't even our lungs come in pairs, which is to say, I cannot breathe without you, so I fashion some spirit out of umoya that I plant into the sky and archaeologists dust the stars until I can find some semblance of your face, because we are making ourselves out of thin air, molding, disappearing into existence. It is sticky and wet with the possibility of breath. You are here, a wild magic that patchworks you together, chaotic in all the ways peace has to offer. Your lineage becomes you, drapes across your shoulders like an old coat in your grandfather's splintered wardrobe. Your descendants are stories told to fire and a night that whispers back in the language of dying stars and muddy earth. You are the memory of deja vu, a gut feeling passed down to dreams you are forgetting, and they remember you as you do them in the empty silence, the quiet magnitude, the unspoken spells that fill your lungs.
Thank you so much. TK, take it, please. Time. We've got 3 minutes and then Mosquito.
All right, cool. All right, the poem is titled Sisters Resolve. Once upon the canvas of fading daylight, black taxed outfits witnessed sisters of the same soil, clothed in attires of muted hues, as if their garments were borrowed from a decolonized rainbow's color palette. These daughters of resilience no longer intertwined fingers with their fallen sibling, whose 16 summers of laughter were silenced by the crimson-stained hands of a man again. So they protected her casketed vessel from the fingerprints of all men, including her untamed father. Like guardians of a fading light, they bore her weight on their weary shoulders before planting her back into their Mother Nature's fertile womb, hoping this place might cradle her spirit, where the roots of change run deep, 6 feet below a culture that has learned to wear violence like a second skin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yo, what the hell, bruh? Okay. How you want to do me? Okay, should I go? Are you waiting for me to just go?
Please. Yes, please.
Wow. 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives. No lives lived, 100 lived lives. Your blood, your path. Your eye, your limit, your dream, your path. Your blood, yeah, your visionary eye. 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives. No lives lived, 100 lived lives. Sun you were, man you are, is. Mountains you've climbed, mountains you descended. Love you had, love you have felt. Love, you know what it is. Addiction, addicted to having no addictions. Fuck lost in handmade map. You're lost in and on your hand. You is 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives. No lives lived, 100 lived lives. Knowing that you will build a building, do not die. Knowing that you'll be part of history, do not die. Knowing that you will be dead, do not die. Knowing that you will be dead, do not be comfortable memory. Tell your story, voice, sound, brook. Tell your story, holes, mistakes, wounds. Tell your story. Today, always today, please, let there be wisdom. Let there be will. Let there be naked, raw, and honorable will. I was here. I am here. Am. Nothing more. Just I. No lives lived, 100 lived lives. die happy.
Okay, we're out, everyone.
Poetry. Gosh, do not die.
Are you guys okay? Is it what's going on right now?
We're just gonna wait for the
we're breathing
system
through it.
to take us out.
Right.
And we're back in the background now, so we can talk. Oh, you took everyone out.